Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever, wherever you're listening. Thank you so very much for making me a part of your day. My name is Lee Parm. You might know me as Lego Lee or Lego Lee 329 from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, you name it. I am all over the internet, and this is the Brickology podcast, the study of small plastic bricks. How are you doing today? I really hope you're doing well, and I hope you're having a better day than me. Have you ever just had one of those days where a bunch of random little things just keep going wrong? Well, it's still on the afternoon when I'm actually recording this episode of Brickology, but it just seems like today has just not been my day. On my YouTube channel and my IGTV, I just uploaded a review for a rock creator set that I actually mentioned in last week's episode of Brickology. Go listen to that if you have not already. And I made the review, and then randomly at the end of editing the review, I was exporting it, and my Adobe Premiere is just like, ha 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 ha, that's funny, and the dreaded beach ball of death appeared, and I had to force quit out of it, and I lost all my footage. I had to do all the review over again, and a bunch of other random things. I had a dentist appointment that kind of came out of nowhere, and I had some cavities, which I haven't had in like 12 years. It has not been a great day, but I'm hoping that recording this episode of Brickology will help to kind of take my mind off things and relax a little bit. And welcome to the 14th episode of Brickology. We are now 3 episodes deep into season 2 of Brickology, and I'm continuing along with my alternating pattern between a licensed and unlicensed theme. So last week was about rock raiders, which I already mentioned, and that means that this week we have a licensed theme. Now, Power Miners fans, next week's episode is going to be the Power Miners episode. I promise. That episode has been a long time coming. Now, the release date might be a little bit different. I don't know exactly, but there's potential that I'm going to be out of town next weekend. So, because of that, I think that episode might end up being posted on Wednesday instead of on Friday. So you're actually gonna get that episode a couple of days early, and then that means there'll be about a 9 or so day gap between that episode and the 5th episode of Brickology towards the end of the month. So that's just something I wanted to clear up if there's some confusion of why there's an episode coming out on a Wednesday as opposed to my normal Friday release date. So this week, theme, like I mentioned, is a licensed theme. And you know, I mentioned in a lot of my episodes, especially my episodes before this whole coronavirus pandemic thing started, that I want to keep Brickology topical. I mentioned that like the first 4 or 5 episodes of Brickology. And then this pandemic started, and topical was kind of thrown out the window because everything was postponed or canceled and whatnot. And a lot of my plans for episodes of Brickology have now been postponed, along with the movies or random source materials they are based off of. I was going to do an episode about Lego Disney Princess to coincide the release of the Mulan movie, and then you know what? That movie is now coming out like in July, I think, and it might get postponed again. I was going to do an episode about Marvel superheroes to coincide with the release of Black Widow, which would have been a couple of weeks ago, and now that movie's coming out in November. I was going to do a Speed Champions episode when the new Fast and Furious movie came out, which I believe was supposed to come out like in a week from today, and you know what? That movie's not coming out until next year. Lots of things have been shuffled around and postponed because of the absolute insanity of this pandemic, and Brickology has been affected by it. However, one movie has not changed its release date, and that movie, which is coming out today instead of coming out in theaters, is coming out to direct-to-VOD, videos on demand, is the movie Scoob, the newest Scooby-Doo movie. And I had originally planned this episode of Brickology like a few months in advance. When I first started doing the podcast back in January, I was like, if I make it this far on this particular date, we're gonna do an episode about Lego Scooby-Doo to coincide the release of the new Scoob movie. And because this movie is coming out today still, even if it's on videos on demand, not in theaters, the movie is still being released. So that means that this episode that has been planned for like 4 or 5 months now is actually going to happen. And that's just kind of a good feeling to actually, you know, have at least one episode of Brickology completely go as planned, which is, you know, just kind of, it relieved me a little bit. So I'm excited to bring to you today's episode of Brickology about Lego Scooby-Doo. Now, whenever I'm talking about a licensed theme on Brickology, I usually like to talk about the history history of the license theme, and this is one of the richer and deeper histories of any LEGO license theme. Now, this theme has very few actual LEGO sets, so we're going to focus a pretty decent chunk of today's episode of Brickology on the history of this intellectual property. And this episode of Brickology probably will be a little bit shorter than the normal one, which I apologize for. It's just because LEGO didn't make too many sets based off Scooby-Doo. Now, Scooby-Doo. You've heard of it. You've definitely heard of it. And this is a word I really don't like throwing around, even though I definitely throw it around a lot here, especially on Brickology. The word is iconic. And I think people always say the word iconic way too relaxed. I think iconic is a word that should be saved for things that are actually iconic. Like Star Wars is iconic, but something, you know, a smaller franchise or something, and just random little things and random little moments from movies. Not everything is actually iconic. Not everything really is a big icon in pop culture. However, Scooby-Doo is iconic. It is one of the most iconic TV shows in general, let alone cartoons of all time. It comes from Hanna-Barbera. If you do not know, it's probably easily Hanna-Barbera's most famous cartoon. And I think the crazy thing about Scooby-Doo is my parents grew up with Scooby-Doo. They're in their 50s. They grew up with Scooby-Doo. You know who else grew up with Scooby-Doo? Me. I'm in my 20s. I grew up with Scooby-Doo. I watched a lot of these Scooby-Doo movies on Saturday afternoons on Cartoon Network back in the day. I believe it was like after the normal Saturday morning cartoons came on, they would always just show these hour-long Scooby-Doo movies, and I was always watching them. I've never been a committed fan of Scooby-Doo. I haven't followed the property religiously or anything like that, but I know a lot of Scooby-Doo stuff, and I've seen a lot of Scooby-Doo material. I also watched the live action movies as well. And this is kind of one of the main reasons that I think this is so iconic, is because clearly I was not the only person in my generation of, 20-some-year-olds now who grew up with these live action Scooby-Doo films. Actually, fun fact here, the first ever Halloween party I attended in college, well, technically after the party, there was like an after party, went back to, a friend's dorm room, and they're like, hey, let's watch a movie. And we watched the first live action Scooby-Doo movie from the early 2000s. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember watching this movie all the time when I was a little kid. And it was just crazy that all these, fellow college students of mine also grew up with this property. And also another thing kind of funny with college Halloween parties, I can guarantee you, if you go to a decent sized school and there's like 50 or more people at any given Halloween party, there is going to be a woman dressed up as Velma. That has to be one of easily the most popular female Halloween costumes out there. I don't know if it's just because it's a very easy costume. You see like an orange sweater. That's definitely a word, an orange sweater and like a reddish skirt and just some glasses. But I swear every year I would see a different woman wearing a Velma costume, if not multiples at the same time. An extremely popular costume. This series has clearly had an impact on generations and generations of people, and because there's a brand new Scooby-Doo movie coming out today, that means that it's here to stay for even longer, because I'm sure there's going to be people who are like 6 or 7 will watch this movie now, and then when they're in college here in like a decade or so, on Halloween they're gonna be like, you know what, we should watch that Scooby-Doo movie that I grew up with. It's crazy how long this IP has lasted, and I think it's time for me to give a brief history of the IP itself. This is going to be a very abbreviated history because there's a lot. There's seriously a lot of history with Scooby-Doo, so I'm just going to give you a very, kind of short story version of its history. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. You know when that happened? When did that happen? I've actually mentioned this on Brickology before. That was the summer of '69. I'm gonna sing a lot in this episode. I just have a weird feeling that I'm just gonna do a lot of singing in today's episode of Brickology, and I apologize in advance. But the summer of '69, that was the summer that mankind landed on the moon. Neil Armstrong took that ever so famous step and said those famous words. That also happened to be the year that Scooby-Doo first premiered. Yes, that is correct. Scooby-Doo is over 50 years old. It's 51 years old. That is crazy. And the first ever Scooby-Doo show was called Scooby-Doo where are you? And this introduced us to, you know, pretty much everything iconic from the Scooby-Doo series. And let's kind of run down what some of those things are. Obviously, introduced us to all the characters we know and love today. Starting off with Scooby-Doo, the Great Dane, which obviously Great Danes are humongous dogs. They are so big. Have you ever seen a Great Dane? I'm just like, that looks like a freaking horse. Great Danes are gigantic dogs. And of course, Scooby-Doo, he's no ordinary Great Dane because he can like kind of talk. He doesn't quite speak like normal English, but he says some words. He's always like, raggy, ruh-roh. It's funny. It's iconic. It's great. I'm saying iconic way too much in this episode, but I mean, truly, it is iconic the way that Scooby-Doo speaks. And of course, you can't have Scooby-Doo without his owner, and that is Shaggy. Shaggy is a great character. I love Shaggy. Speaking of Halloween, like I've already mentioned, I feel like I would make a good Shaggy. If you've seen me in real life, I'm tall, I'm redheaded, and I have kind of lanky arms and legs. I can definitely walk around like Shaggy. Scooby and Shaggy are iconic characters, and you know, they are a product of the 1960s, and you know, peace, love, no war, all that sort of stuff, and a lot of weed, marijuana was going around at these times, and these characters are clearly supposed to be stoners if you couldn't tell by the way that they talked and the fact that there's a talking dog. And some people just think the reason there's a talking dog is because Shaggy is high all the time and he's just hallucinating that there's a talking dog. And they also have an incredible case of the munchies 24/7. And of course, Scooby-Doo eats the iconic Scooby snacks, which actually taste pretty good in real life, but I'm pretty sure they're just like graham crackers in real life and not actually dog treats. But yes, of course. So we have those iconic character. And if Shaggy has a very iconic voice, and it just feels like there are so many various lines from the Scooby-Doo series that everybody can say. You have Shaggy who's always like, Zoink, Scoob! You know, he's always saying Scoob, which is the name of the new movie. And I mean, it's just great. And then of course you have the three remaining characters. You have Fred, Daphne, and then Velma, who I've already mentioned. And Velma, of course, says jinkies. She's always losing her glasses and trying to feel for her glasses on the ground. Everybody knows this stuff. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you are living under a rock. You never lived. I'm considered you've never watched cartoons or anything, because this is just stuff that's like literally common knowledge. And I think it's pretty crazy that these aspects of a 51-year-old cartoon show are common knowledge pretty much among all people across all generations, which is just a testament to absolutely how huge this intellectual property has gotten. And this original Scooby-Doo show kind of introduced us to the Scooby-Doo formula, if you will. Each episode of the show had a very similar story. Basically what they would do is they would set up the story with some kind of mystery for the gang to solve. And the mystery usually involves something that seemed supernatural and had kind of monster Halloween-esque ties to it. Then the gang would usually split up into two groups to try and solve the mystery. Shaggy and Scooby would go do their own thing, and then Fred, Velma, and Daphne would do their thing. They all come together at the end, they solve the mystery, they grab the monster at hand, rip off its mask, and it's revealed to be a character that was introduced earlier on in the episode, and then, say it with me, that character always says, and I would have gotten away with it wasn't for you meddling kids. That always happens at the end of every Scooby-Doo episode, and it teaches young kids that the people messing with you in your life are actually people that you trusted, and you can't really trust anybody. Okay, I'm kidding, but that's definitely a meme I've seen online. And some more iconic themes that Scooby-Doo gave us is, of course, the Scooby-Doo theme song. And like I said, I'm gonna sing a lot on today's episode of Brickology, so bear with me. It's time for Lego Lee to start singing the Scooby-Doo theme song. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We've got some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We need some help from you now. I don't really remember the rest of the words. I'm sorry, I actually don't remember the rest of the words of the theme song, but I know the tune to the theme song. And I think everybody can, you know, pretty much sing that first line of the theme song. And this theme song has a very 60s pop rock style, which makes sense for the time it was released. It kind of reminds me of something you might hear by the Beach Boys or maybe even the Beatles. It's a very iconic theme song I think most people people can sing. And a few more things that were introduced. I pretty much mentioned everything, but one more thing I need to mention. One of the most iconic media vehicles of all time, of course, is the Mystery Machine, which is a Volkswagen style van. I don't think it has any official licensing, but it's very clearly supposed to be a VW bus type van. And the Mystery Machine, I mean, it's a vehicle you see all the time. You know, go to Universal Studios today, people are still going to take pictures next to the Mystery Machine. So that's the original Scooby-Doo cartoon. It really didn't run for a very long time. It actually only ran for like 2 seasons, from 69 to 71. But in 1972, they released the new Scooby-Doo movies. Now that's literally what they called them, the new Scooby-Doo movies, which were essentially just 1 hour long episodes of the TV show advertised as movies. And then those, you know, came out for a few years. Then in 79, they made the show Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. And Scrappy-Doo, of course, is like the little version of Scooby-Doo that's extremely annoying, which introduced us to that character. And then, you know what? It's time for me to just reel off a bunch of random Scooby-Doo shows. There are so many, and if I spent time describing each and every one of these, we would be here for hours. So I'm just gonna quickly reel off with them, so bear with me here real quick. So to kind of round out the original Hanna-Barbera run of Scooby-Doo, we had the new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. Then we had the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, and then finally a pup named Scooby-Doo. Now, Scooby-Doo then moved over to WB/CW in the early 2000s, and we had a show called What's New? Scooby-Doo, then a show called Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, Get a Clue, and then after that, it's moved over to Boomerang and to Cartoon Network, where we have Scooby-Doo, Mystery Incorporated, Be Cool, Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. Along with that, we have had tons of direct-to-video movies, and there's way too many for me to even like mention them right here, and even a Lego special that came out in 2016 called Lego Scooby-Doo Haunted Halloween. Also, those are just the TV shows and direct-to-video things. We had 2 theatrical live-action films. Scooby-Doo, which was released in 2002, which is again is a movie that I personally grew up with, and it's not a great movie. The CGI definitely looks kind of whack these days, but I do have a lot of fond memories of that film. And just a fun fact about that movie, the writer of that movie was none other than James Gunn. Yes, the guy who created and wrote the Guardians of the Galaxy films. Actually, one of the earlier jobs in his career was writing the original Scooby-Doo, and then they actually made a sequel to that movie called Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, which I have seen, but I don't have quite as many fond memories of that film. But that film came out 2 years later in the year 2004. Jump forward 16 years later to 2020, we are now getting Scoob, which is just the name of the movie, Scoob with an exclamation point on the end, and this is a CGI animated version of Scooby-Doo, making the first CGI version of the character. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot. It's an iconic series with so much source material, and I think such a big intellectual property. It only makes sense for something this cartoony to be made into toys and be merchandised heavily. And I think a marriage between Lego and Scooby-Doo is just inevitable. It was inevitable, and it's actually kind of odd. I believe that a company, what was the name of the company? I can't remember the exact name. I think it was the company that made the bricks for Creo, but it was like the European version of it. Actually made Scooby-Doo buildable sets before Lego, so Lego is actually not the original company to make brick-built Scooby-Doo toys. But in 2015, the merger happened, and we got our first ever wave of Lego Scooby-Doo sets. So it's finally time to jump in and talk about those sets. I just did some mid-episode research on the Google. Character Building is the name of the other brand that actually made Scooby-Doo brick-built sets before Lego did, and it's not the brand that actually made things for Creo. So I was mistaken on that, and I need to correct my mistakes, because I actually made a mistake on my Rock Raiders episode last week that some people point out in the comments, and I don't like making mistakes. I try to do very thorough research for these episodes of Brickology, and if I make a mistake, it definitely, you know, kind of hurts my reputation, and I want to give you guys all the correct information. And if I do make mistakes, be gracious about it. Don't, you know, completely roast me, but be gracious and point it out in the comment section down below, and I will gladly acknowledge when I do make a mistake. Now, let's talk about Lego Scooby-Doo sets. Last week's episode of Brickology, I mentioned the term one and done, which just means that you have one little theme with one line and that's it, and then it's gone. Rock Raiders was pretty much a one and done theme. And unfortunately, Scooby-Doo, besides like I've already mentioned that haunted Halloween thing which came with a promotional poly bag that I'll mention later in this episode, Scooby-Doo was a one and done Lego theme. We got one wave. Now, technically speaking, we did get a Dimensions starter pack. However, Dimensions is technically a different theme, so I'm not really going to mention or focus on that in today's episode. Just wait for a Dimensions episode that I'm sure will happen at some point later down the line. We're just going to talk about the line of Scooby-Doo sets we got in August of 2015. 5 sets. And that's it. That's literally all we ever got from Scooby-Doo, and since it's so few sets, we'll spend a good amount of time focusing on each one. The first set we'll talk about here is the Mummy Museum Mystery. Lego really went for the M alliteration on the title for this set, and I remember in my original review for this set 5 years ago, I said, say that name 5 times fast. So Mummy Museum Mystery, Mummy Museum, yeah, it's pretty difficult to say the name of this particular set. But this is the smallest Lego Scooby-Doo set. It was a $15 set with 110 pieces, and it included Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. Now, you're going to hear those two names a lot, the two main characters of Scooby-Doo. Those two figures, they come in every single Scooby-Doo set. There are different versions, especially of Scooby-Doo, but you do get Scooby-Doo and Shaggy in some way, shape, or form throughout all of these Lego Scooby-Doo sets. The rest of the set, you can probably guess kind of what's going on. It's a Mummy Museum Mystery. You get a small Egyptian museum display with a large sarcophagus piece in the center, and there was a pretty cool play feature. The sarcophagus had like a chain you could pull on it, and the chain would open up to reveal the mummy inside of the sarcophagus, which is a cool play feature. And the mummy is one of the more memorable villains from, you know, just pop culture in general. So I think putting such a desirable villain character in a small set was actually a pretty cool move on Lego's part, and that mummy figure was completely exclusive to this set. Now, a lot of the villain characters in these Scooby-Doo sets, like I've already mentioned in the show, they rip off their mask and they're always like, I would have gotten away with it, it wasn't for you meddling kids. Well, you could actually do that with the characters and minifigures from these Lego Scooby-Doo sets, making a great use of the double-sided face play feature. You could always reveal the secret identity of these villains, which is a great play feature, makes a great use of Lego's double-sided face mechanic, and it's really just fun and super cool and adds a whole lot to kind of the mystique of Scooby-Doo, and it really, I think, represents the show very, very well. And before I finish talking about this set, I actually have a fun little story involving this set. I always love to give my anecdotes about particular sets here on Brickology, and I have a few of them with these respective Lego Scooby-Doo sets. Now, Lego Scooby-Doo sets came out August 1st, 2015. That was their official release date. However, Lego actually sold these sets at San Diego Comic-Con a few weeks early. So people could go to Comic-Con and buy these sets. And it wasn't like, you know, some sketchy underground market thing. It was Lego was literally selling these sets early. They also sold the Big Bang Theory set early. They were selling a lot of stuff early at San Diego Comic-Con. And when things are out early, scalpers go wild and they buy up as many copies as they can of these sets and then sell them on aftermarkets like eBay and Brickset for way more money than it's worth. And, you know, I wanted to get a set early or something because I was still really into my YouTube channel at this point. I was about to go to college and I was like, I need to get out as much good material as I can before I go off to college. And I wanted to do a review for one of these sets early. Now, all the prices for these sets were ridiculous. Like I was like, I'll get the Mystery Machine early, 100 bucks. They were charging $100 for a $30 set. And I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that. I can wait 2 weeks. I don't need to do that. I don't have the money to do that. However, with this set, the Mummy Museum Mystery, they were selling it and it had a big increase in price for $25. A $15 set, $25, that's a 66.6% increase in percentage of price. I mean, that's, you know, a big difference. But they were selling this set, but $25, I mean, 25 bucks really isn't that much. And it was only $10 more than the original price. And I was like, you know what? That's not too bad. That's not too bad. So I actually ordered this set a full 2 weeks early. I got my review out for this set on July 17th of 2015 as opposed to August 1st when they were officially released. So I think it paid off because this video now has thousands of views. It's my most viewed Scooby-Doo video review. And you know, I think paying that extra $10 for this set worked out for me in the long run. And it's a very good set, and I think a really, really good set for its cheap price point of only 15 bucks. The next set in the line for $20 US was the Mystery Plane Adventure. This set was 20 bucks with 128 pieces. Oof, that is not a good price per piece. It included Shaggy, who was nothing different from the last version we already mentioned, but you did get an exclusive version of Scooby-Doo. This version had a sitting down variant. Now, there actually are two different versions of the Scooby-Doo body mold. The head mold was always the same, but the body mold was different on these figures. One version he was standing up, and one version he was sitting down. This particular one, he's sitting down, and he actually has an exclusive face print because he had goggles printed on his face, which is, you know, a pretty cool and fun little variant of Scooby-Doo. You also got an exclusive villain character in the Headless Horseman, who had a brand new pumpkin piece, jack-o'-lantern pumpkin piece that could go underneath his head. And of course, like these other figures, you could take off the pumpkin piece to reveal his secret identity. And the build of this set was a Mystery Machine colored biplane. So it uses kind of like the mint and lime green and orange colors of the Mystery Machine combined, used to make the same color scheme but on a biplane build. And it was a very underwhelming build design. It's a very by the numbers, pun intended, biplane that I just don't think impressed anybody. And we've seen so many of this vehicle in LEGO before and after this set, so definitely not an interesting build at all. The Headless Horseman was a cool villain that had one of the newer style of horse pieces that came with the Lord of the Rings set, so great minifigures were included with this set, and obviously $20 sets are always good, but it wasn't a very good deal based off its price per piece, and the build of this set was pretty underwhelming, which honestly, I think this is probably the worst Scooby-Doo set. Unfortunately, it's not a terrible set. I don't regret buying this set or anything, but I think if there's any set from this line that you could easily skip and not really feel that bad about, it's this set. So we're gonna jump from possibly the worst Scooby-Doo set to probably easily, definitely the best Scooby-Doo set, especially voted on by my fans on Instagram, who voted this the best set from the Scooby-Doo line by no surprise. That, of course, is the Mystery Machine. This was a $30 set with 301 pieces, which means it has pretty much a perfect price per piece, which is great to see. You got Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. I kind of combined their two names there, which were not exclusive versions of the characters at all, but you did get an exclusive Fred minifigure who had a brand new hairpiece just for Fred, and of course he's an iconic member of the Mystery Gang, and you had to get this figure to complete your Mystery Gang collection, so great figure in this set. But you also got a zombie, which is a good villain to get, but the weird thing is the zombie had a printed face, but since it's a zombie, it didn't really have any hair or anything to cover up a double-sided face, so this figure just did not have the same reveal play feature, which I think is kind of odd. You also got a brick-built alive tree. Another kind of strange thing going on with this set is this tree with like weird arms and a big sticker with a big, you know, kind of scary mouth. Kind of looks like a Pokemon or something. A very odd little build. Not the best villains included with this set, but no one bought this set for the villain characters. They were kind of just in on the side. You got this set for the Mystery Machine, the VW bus style, and LEGO did a brilliant job designing this set. This honestly has the design prowess of a set like a LEGO Ideas set. It reminds me of the Ecto-1 or Back to the Future DeLorean. It's a great design, and it just goes well with any LEGO display. It really looks that good. Now, they did use a lot of stickers. Pretty much all the details on the side of this vehicle were accomplished using stickers, which is very unfortunate. That is definitely something that I think LEGO kind of just messed up with on this set. That really sucks. But it had a unique windscreen piece that looked really good. The design was nice. The back could open up. You could fit a large amount of minifigures inside this design. This was just all around a huge win of a LEGO set. And this set was very popular. To no one's surprise, a relatively cheap Mystery Machine set was very popular. It was sold out a lot of places and became very expensive on secondary markets. And I believe believe today it's going for like over $100 on eBay, brand new and sealed. So if you invested in some of these sets, you're definitely getting a good payoff from your investment now here 5 years later. And I have a pretty fun little story about getting this set as well. I did not order it on eBay, but I did get it early from Target. I basically had to beg, literally had to beg a Target employee to give me this thing early, because normally when they have a set early, they're always like, but there's a street date. I can't give it to you until the street date. And I was like, but please, I want to review it early on my YouTube channel. And this guy, he doesn't work at my Target anymore, which is why Target never gives me things early anymore. But this man, I think his name was Tom, I don't remember, but we were like buddies, kind of. I mean, we weren't really buddies, but I always saw him and always begging him to, you know, grab things from the back room for me from Lego. And this guy was my dude, and he hooked me up with this set. So Tom, if for some reason you were listening to this episode of Brickology, thank you so much. And Tom also looked smack like Chris Pratt. He didn't look like, you know, handsome, muscular Guardians of the Galaxy Chris Pratt. He looked more like Andy Dwyer Chris Pratt from Parks and Recreation, the earlier seasons. But man, he looked like Chris Pratt, and he was always hooking me up with Lego sets early. So shout out to Tom from Target, who looks like Chris Pratt. Thank you so much for giving me this set early, and this is a fantastic Lego set. Moving on to some of the bigger sets from this Scooby-Doo line. For $50 with 437 pieces, we had the Haunted Lighthouse. This set included Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. This was the sitting down version of Scooby-Doo, but he had a more normal Scooby-Doo face print. You also got Daphne, who was not exclusive to this set, kind of surprisingly, and the villains were the Lighthouse Keeper, that was actually revealed to be a woman, which is kind of a fun little twist because it's a, you know, big bearded man who is revealed to be a woman, and then a swamp creature, which is it's used as the same mold, just recolored as the version that came with the Monster Fighter sets from 2012, and we'll definitely be doing kind of a Halloween themed episode with that theme in the future. Now, the build of this set here is you got a very small little speedboat, again with those mystery machine colors, kind of a forgettable small side build, and then of course the Haunted Lighthouse itself. This lighthouse was built using dark red and white pieces. It had stripes going up. It had kind of a Skull Island look off to the side where you could reveal some treasure maps and hidden treasure and whatnot, and it's pretty similar to the new Hidden Side Lighthouse set that just came out. I believe that costs the same amount at $50. So if you've seen the Hidden Side Lighthouse, this is a similar type of set. It's also the only Scooby-Doo set that I personally don't own. I don't have this set in my collection, but I have built it. Yes, that's kind of a weird thing. I have actually built this set. My friend Nathan actually had this set, and he lent it to me to do a video review on, and I destroyed the whole thing and rebuilt the whole thing without the numbered bags, by the way. And I filmed that review right before I went to college. And I got to college and the new Force Friday, Force Awakens, Star Wars sets came out. I prioritized reviewing those, and this review got lost in the shuffle and was never released on my channel. It's a weird mystery review that I did film, but I never actually uploaded my review for this set. And I have absolutely no idea where those files are now. Most likely deleted or just saved on an old computer, because I've had multiple different laptops since making that review. So those files are probably kind of lost in the shuffle, and we're never actually going to see my review for this particular set. So a fun and kind of random little story behind this Haunted Lighthouse set. Now, last but absolutely certainly not least for these boxed Scooby-Doo sets was the $90 Mystery Mansion with 860 pieces. Now, the Mystery Machine, it won pretty handily, but the only other set from this entire line that got any votes for Scooby-Doo was this set. And this is a great set. It included Shaggy and Scooby, the standing version of Scooby-Doo, Daphne, who already came in the set, and an exclusive Velma minifigure, which is really cool. And one kind of weird thing about these Scooby-Doo sets is you actually only needed to buy the Mystery Machine and this mansion set to complete the gang of Scooby-Doo minifigures. I thought that might have been a miscalculation on Lego's part, because I definitely would have bought the Lighthouse set for myself if Daphne was completely exclusive, but the fact that she was in this set as well meant that I didn't have to buy that set, which, you know, is kind of nice that Lego didn't make you have to buy the entire wave just to complete the mystery gang. But at the same time, I've definitely heard a lot of things that the sets that weren't the Mystery Machine and this mansion didn't sell sell very well from this Scooby-Doo line, so maybe LEGO made a little bit of a financial miscalculation with having it, you know, that easy to actually get access to these minifigures rather than getting, you know, like all 5 sets to actually complete the gang. Additionally, for minifigures, we had the villains in the set. You had the vampire, obviously super iconic, great character. You had a ghost who had the glow-in-the-dark ghost piece, and you also had a knight minifigure, so a nice plethora of different villains, and there's even an alive Venus flytrap plant that goes into one of the builds of this set. Now, before we talk about the mansion itself, you also did get a vehicle. It was a mystery, again, Mystery Machine colored, but this time it was a motorcycle with a sidecar, kind of like the one that came with that Indiana Jones set. Very cool little build. You know, I don't think LEGO makes too many sidecars, so this is definitely a nice build. But the mansion, of course, is the piece de resistance of this set. It had a purple roof. They used the classic Hogwarts roof piece in purple, which might be exclusive to this set. Not entirely sure, don't back me up on that, but it might be, and it's a very cool piece to get. And in the middle, they had a nice clock, which had a cool play feature where the clock could actually rotate around, and when it reached midnight, the vampire was revealed. So it's like a revealing play feature slash a clock play feature. Pretty cool mechanism, really good play feature for this particular set. There was also a couple of side rooms to this mansion. You had a kitchen off to one side that had a lot of, you know, crazy things going on, nice tiled floor, and then a greenhouse, which is where, of course, your alive Venus flytrap plant fits in. And I remember getting this set actually when I went to Brick Fair in 2015, and I still have this set displayed. I still have this set perfectly preserved and built, which is unlike a lot of other sets I mentioned on Brickology. I'm always like, I threw my set in a bin, I haven't seen it in years, or I destroyed it when I was a kid. Luckily, I have this set perfectly built and preserved, and I'm super proud of that because this is absolutely a great set and a great way to end this episode. However, there's actually one more thing we have to talk about, and that is the promotional poly bag that came with the aforementioned LEGO Scooby-Doo Haunted Halloween movie. This was just a Scooby-Doo minifigure, the standing version, but I believe his face print was exclusive. Like, his tongue was in a different position than the other face prints. That's it. That's it. I never got this. I wasn't a completionist with this theme, as you know, because I did not get the Lighthouse set. So yeah, that's it for that. And that's the last Scooby-Doo set we got, the last Scooby-Doo LEGO product we ever got. Oh, zoink, Scoob, looks like LEGO Lee's done talking about our theme. I'm sorry for my awful impressions and my weird constant singing throughout this episode, but I had a ton of fun talking about LEGO Scooby-Doo today. It's sadly a very short-lived LEGO theme, and I wish there were more sets. I wish they were making sets based off this new Scoob movie. Not entirely sure what happened. I just heard that a lot of the sets didn't sell particularly well, and I'm sure LEGO has their reasons for never making any more Scooby-Doo sets, but they've kind of gone down as a pretty, you know, fond memory, and I think of a lot of LEGO fans' minds. And it's crazy they're now 5 years old because these sets still feel pretty new. But the sets do have very similar builds to sets like from Monster Fighters or now the Hidden Side theme. So I think LEGO has kind of moved on and has, you know, pumped more money into similar themes and not having to pay for the Scooby-Doo license. But I think it's a great theme. I have tons of fond memories of this theme, and I had a good time recording this episode of Brickology, and it definitely did accomplish that mission I was talking about at the beginning. It took my mind off what was otherwise a pretty crappy day for LEGO Lee here. This episode recording went by very smoothly. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Brickology. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow me on Spotify. Today, actually, I hit over 2,000 streams, which is awesome. However, I only have 57 followers. Only 57 of you who have listened actively follow me on Spotify. Just hit me with the follow so you can get all the latest updates for Brickology. Speaking of following, go follow me on Instagram. I post daily over there. You can also like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you really love LEGO Lee, you really love the Brickology podcast, check me out on Patreon. I only have like 5 patrons. I'm very thankful for all my Patreon supporters. But if you want to donate, literally like $1 a month will go a long way to helping me make awesome content like this podcast and more videos and stuff for my Instagram and whatnot. So maybe consider checking me out on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace out. Bye-bye.